Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Zsuzsi. How are we all doing today? Well, I am super excited because in today's video I am going to talk to you about all the 2024 new releases that I am anticipating, and I think that you should too, because 2024 looks like or seems to be a way better year for new releases than 2023, because this year I don't think that we got a lot of really good books. Now, I went a little bit overboard because I have like easily 50 plus new releases that I am excited about, but I'm not going to put all those books into one video, so I am going to make this into a series. And in this first part we are going to discuss everything fantasy, fantasy romance, romantasy, and romantic fantasy. And then in the upcoming videos I will talk to you guys a little bit more about general fiction, contemporary fiction, literature, thrillers, horrors, romance, like everything, all the good stuff. It's all coming up. I have a very well curated list because I was super strict. I cut it down and I promised to myself that I am only putting books on this list that I am definitely reading in 2024. So for the fantasy category, I ended up with 14 books. I think that we have some truly amazing books coming out in 2024. So without any further ado, let's just get to the list itself. And the very first release in 2024, this book is coming out on January 16th, is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherland. So this is the second book in the series. The first one was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I adored that book. I adored the world, I adored the characters. I fell over heels for Emily and Bumblebee, and I am ready to be back in this world. I love that this series explores the darker side of fae, because when it comes to romantic fantasy, it tends to be about, you know, the Sarah J. Maas kind of fae like Rhysand and Cassian, etc. And this is not. This book is about the dark fae culture and the darkness of the creatures. I think it works very well with this whole wintry, dark and cold setting. Emily Wilde is a professor at Cambridge University, and she is studying the fae, and in this book she is mapping the fairy realms. When mysterious fairies from the fairy realm appear and try to assassinate Emily and Bumblebee, and they have to flee. And Emily must uncover their secrets before it is too late. This just sounds so good. And apparently in this book we are going to the Austrian Alps, so beautiful winter setting. And then the other book coming out in January, and I know that everybody is so excited about this because this is the newest Sarah J. Maas release, A House of Flame and Blood. Oh wait, no, A House of Flame and Shadow. House of Flame and Blood though also so good. Just saying. So this is the third book in the Crescent City series, and if you are new to the Sarah J. Maas universe or Maasverse, then this is her first epic urban fantasy series, and I really like this series. I don't like it as much as ACOTAR because I am an ACOTAR girly, but if you know, you know. Of course, I am super excited for both of these books, and I am going to film reading vlogs for each of these new releases. So if this is something that interests you, then stay tuned. And apparently, but I am super confused about this, but the third book in the Fourth Wing series was also scheduled for 2024 January. It seems like Rebecca Yarros is just pumping out these books. Like, my humble opinion is that maybe she should take a little bit longer time before publishing the sequels, because a little bit of more editing would be great, I think, but this is just my humble opinion. I am not super crazy about this series, I'm not gonna lie, but I am definitely continuing. I am reading it and I am picking it up. If the third book is coming out in 2024 in January or whenever, I am definitely picking it up. So I just wanted to mention that. According to Goodreads, it is coming out in January 2024. And then we start February with an Ellie Hazelwood release, Bride. Now this is supposed to be more like a fantasy romance because she is publishing feminist kind of romance, but not this time. This is a fantasy romance. In the description they say that this is a paranormal romance because this seemed to be a romance between a vampire and a werewolf. And the trope that this book follows is marriage of convenience and kind of like enemies to lovers, because Misery, yes, that is her name. She is a vampire and she is the daughter of a vampire lord or something. And she is forced to marry the alpha of a werewolf clan that they are fighting. So it seems like that we will have a lot of very popular tropes in this book. And I enjoyed so far the books that I have read from Ellie Hazelwood. So I cannot wait to see what she does with fantasy and with paranormal romance. So I am keeping an eye on this book. And in February, Jennifer L. Armentrout is releasing a novella. It is called officially A Companion Guide, and it is called Visions of Flesh and Blood. And I guess that this is for the fans of from Blood and Ash series. I am reading that series, but I've said this many times that I feel that the series is getting gradually worse. So I personally think that, you know, she should kind of like maybe, I don't know, stop the series somewhere, somehow. I might read this book because this is just a novella from Miss Villa's point of view. And again, if you know, you know. But this is not something that, like, you know, I am looking forward to read on release date, but it is definitely on my list. Jennifer L. Armentrout, that woman works. That woman works so hard because she is releasing multiple books per year. Like in 2023, she released 3 books. In 2024, she is releasing at least 2 books. So it is crazy. And in February, we also have a new fantasy romance coming out from Danielle L. Jensen. And for those of you who don't know, she is the author of The Bridge Kingdom. And I loved Bridge Kingdom. I am still in the process of reading it. I finished the first 2 books, but you know, we still have 4 more books to read. I am reading that series, but I really like her writing, so I think that I am picking this book up. And it is called A Fate Inked in Blood, I think. And this is a Norse myth inspired fantasy romance, and honestly it sounds really good. The protagonist of this book is Freya, and she is in an unwanted marriage. Her husband is an asshole and she cannot wait to get out of this marriage and to become a warrior. And then I don't know exactly what happens, obviously, because I haven't read the book, but her husband ends up betraying her. And somehow he ends up in a fight with the king's son Björn. And during the fight, because it's a fight to the death, it turns out that she is a shield maiden because she has goddess blood in herself. And the king sees it immediately that, Freya, you could be useful for me. So he tasks his son Björn to look after and watch after Freya. And I think we all know how this is going to end, right? Sounds good. I am looking forward to it. Then on March 5th, a new book from Holly Black is coming out, The Prisoner's Throne. This is the 2nd book in the Stolen Heir duology. Now look, I have not read The Cruel Prince yet. I am reading the series. I am like in the middle of reading the series and I love it. And I can already tell you that when this book comes out, I am just going to snatch it up and like read it on release day because I cannot wait to be back in Elfheim. I mean, I am reading the series right now, so I am kind of in there in that universe, but I already cannot wait to go back. It's crazy. And then in April, we have the 2nd Sangu Mandana book coming out, A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. And for those of you who don't know, she is the author of the cozy fantasy The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and I absolutely adore this book. And honestly, the premise of this book sounds way better. The protagonist, Sarah, was once apparently the biggest witch in Britain, but then she decided to resurrect her aunt Jasmine. And because of that, she lost her powers and she was exiled from a magical guild. And now she helps Aunt Jasmine run her magical inn, but she is very keen to get her powers back. So when she hears about this book that holds the knowledge on how to restore her powers, she finds herself turning to Luke, who is a very icy and broody historian who seems to be the only person who is able to help her. So it feels like that this is gonna be like, you know, a typical grumpy sunshine romance. And on top of this, the book also has another character, a fox, and I love foxes, so of course I am reading this book. And this fox seems to be like a semi-villain in the story, so of course I have to read this. I have to read this. And then in April, there is also a fantasy standalone by Leigh Bardugo that is coming out, and the title is The Familiar. And from what I was able to gather online, because honestly the description of this book is not super clear, and this seems to be a historical fantasy that takes place in historical Spain, specifically in Madrid. The protagonist in this book is Lucia, who is a magic wielder, and the Spanish king wants to use her and her magic to help the Spanish Armada against the fight with England, you know, Elizabeth I. And this is what the description says. I want to read this to you guys because it sounds so good. Lucia plunges into a world of seer and alchemists and holy men where the line between magic, science, and fraud is never certain. This sounds really, really, really good. I am looking forward to it, and I am looking forward to reading my first Leigh Bardugo because I've never read anything from her. I know that her series are like obscenely popular. I know it. I've just never read them. And on the same day, on April 9th, there is this other fantasy novel coming out, and honestly, just based on the description, this sounds amazing. This is supposed to be a debut novel, and the description also says that this is for the fans of The Invisible Life of Eddie LaRue. So, The Invisible Life of Eddie LaRue is one of my favorite fantasy books of all time. So, no-brainer that I have to read this book. A short walk through a wide world. This sounds amazing. So this story starts out in 1885 in Paris, and our protagonist is Aubrey, a 19-year-old girl who is apparently super spoiled and super selfish. And on her way home from the school, she finds a wooden puzzle ball, and I don't know how or why or what happens, but she ends up throwing away that ball, and then the same night she finds it in her backpack, and at the dinner table she starts bleeding to death, and nobody understands what is happening to her because this is not a normal medical condition and nobody can save her life, and the medical treatments seem to just make her feel worse, so she decides to flee the city, and she realizes that this act of movement is actually saving her life, so she tries to outrun her disease or her curse, but she cannot stay in one place for longer than a few days. Honestly, this sounds so good. It sounds like something that I want to pick up on release day. And then in May, the newest installment in the Lore Olympus series is coming out, and I think that this is book number 6. And now look, guys, I have not read this series yet. It is a graphic novel series, a romantic graphic novel series, and honestly, I am obsessed with it. I am obsessed with Greek myth retellings, and I really want to check this out because people tend to have such a high opinion about this book. So book number 6 is getting released in May, so I have time to read the other 5 books before this one comes out. And in May, Jennifer L. Ormantrout is releasing another book Oh God, I don't remember the title. I can never remember her titles. It's crazy. Was the title Born of Blood and Ash? Yes. And apparently this is the last book. This is book number 4 in the prequel series to From Blood and Ash. Yeah. I would like to finish the prequel in 2024, so I think that I am picking this book up as soon as I can. And then in July, there is a Greek myth retelling that is coming out, and I am so excited for this one specifically. And this is Hera by Jennifer Saint. And I really like Jennifer Saint's writing. I read Ariadne, I read Electra. I haven't read Atalanta yet, but it is definitely on the list. But the description for this book just sounds so cool, because this is the feminist empowering retelling of Hera, who for a very long time was always betrayed as kind of like a jealous wife and a very wicked stepmother, somebody who is more like the instrument of the patriarchy. But in this retelling, we will get to know her as more like a very powerful queen. Hera is the daughter of the Titan Kronos, and she was the one who helped Zeus to overthrow their father so that they could rule the world together. But then Hera soon realizes that Zeus seemed to be just as bad as Kronos was, and she doesn't want to assist him anymore, but still she was born to rule. Sounds so good, so good, so good, so good, so good. I cannot wait to read this one. And then the last book that I want to mention in this video, it is coming out in August, and this is an Ava Reid book. And I've never read anything from her. Every single book of hers just sounds so good, and they are on my TBR. I just haven't had the chance to actually read them. But I think that this is going to be the first book that I read from her, and this is Lady Macbeth. The book got no covers yet, so I don't know, I'm just going to insert a picture of my gingerbread house. Now you guessed it, that this is going to be a feminist retelling of Lady Macbeth, one of our characters in the Shakespearean play Macbeth. And honestly, I need this book in my life. One of my favorite Shakespearean play, no, I should say my favorite Shakespearean play or Shakespeare play is Macbeth. It is my number one, my absolute favorite, and I cannot wait to see what Ava Reid does to the character of Lady Macbeth. Okay, this is it, guys. This is the end of the video. This video, the fantasy edition, again, keep your eyes out for all the upcoming videos that I'm going to publish in this series. Let me know if you are interested in reading any of these books. Let me know if you already read any of these books, and definitely let me know if I forgot a super important, super famous, super significant fantasy book that is coming out in 2024. Hit share, like, and subscribe to my channel. If you haven't already done so, you are welcome here. If you want to check out any of my other videos, I will leave them on the screen, probably here and here. And I see you soon in an upcoming video. Bye!